Hey there, good evening. Nice to see you. It's time for the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to writers and editors and journalists and all different people who are putting stuff out in the Bronx. In our second segment, we're going to focus on this book, which is just an incredible volume about our home borough. It is the third edition of South Bronx Rising. But in our first segment, we're thrilled to bring back a staff reporter from the Bronx Times. It is our buddy Aliya Schneider. Nice to have you with us, Aliya.
Thanks for having me, Gary.
Aliya, you have written extensively about the Bruckner rezoning plan, and I have gotten a lot of information, frankly, on what's going on through you, and we appreciate that. Where is this at right now? Why don't you bring us up to date?
Well, the project is pretty much good to go now. I mean, in terms of the zoning process, the city has given developers the go ahead. The city council unanimously approved the zoning amendment after city councilwoman Marjorie Velasquez completely changed at least her public stance on the project and urged her fellow council members to pass it. The mayor had a chance to veto the project, but he didn't, which was not a surprise because he was a vocal supporter of the project. So
And all rezonings, I might add. I mean, rezoning is his thing. He's made that clear.
yeah, so they have the zoning permissions that they need to go forward.
Mhm. It was a surprise to you, frankly, to me, and certainly to our constituents, that the council member changed her position. Do we have any indication of why, or what was it that changed her opinion? That something maybe that she was happier about that she wasn't happy before, that was part of the project? I mean, do we know why there was really a 180-degree shift?
So in her interviews and public statements for quite a while in terms of why she was against the project, she never really made it about something specific that she wanted from them. It was mostly the fact that she was against it. And I had asked her, is there anything about this project that if is there anything that the developers could do to get your support? And she basically doubled down that she was against it. So, in terms of leading up to her changing her mind, there wasn't like one clear thing that she was asking for. She was concerned that the carpenters union was not involved and they ultimately were involved. So, I'm sure that's part of it. In her statement that day, she talked about deeper affordability. They did lower the area median income for some of the units, but she also cited points that advocates for the project have been making for months and months that she didn't, at least publicly, entertain much. So it's a bit of a mystery in terms of when exactly she changed her view and what exactly it was.
Or why? Yeah.
Yeah, and I have been trying to get her on the phone to have a deeper conversation beyond the statement that she put out, and she has not made herself available for an interview. I really hope to talk to her more about this because it was a big change and I am still trying, so hopefully she decides.
Hopefully she will. I will tell you also, just between us journalists and all the people watching, we have invited her to Bronx Talk to review that and other issues as well. And they haven't fully confirmed an appointment. We hope that she will. Her constituents on that alone are raising red flags and saying, well, wait a minute, you told us one thing and then you went and did another. That's a difficult thing. But if she can justify it and explain why that this she would support a project, I mean, we'll see. Now, to your knowledge, this is now ready to go. The mayor has approval or had approval. Like where is that at
The mayor could have vetoed it and he did not, meaning that is a
in the proper time frame?
yep. So
So it's moving forward.
good to go.
Uh, Wow, it is a go, and we'll see, of course, if there are ongoing protests about it. If there are, there's a lot of opposition to it. Whether people, I think you had told me in a previous discussion that there was some suggestion of lawsuits. It's hard to say that that can work because the process has moved forward apparently appropriately, even if people don't like it. I wonder if there will be protests when trucks start moving in. Who knows? So that's where that is at. Do you see the Just Home project, which is the Fortune Society going to occupy a vacant building on the Jacoby Hospital campus? Do you see that as a similar kind of project because there's been similar dissatisfaction about it as the Bruckner rezoning? How do you see that Just Home project, which you have written about extensively?
Yeah, I mean, the proposals are very different projects and they're in two different neighborhoods, but they're both in the same city council district and they're both facing a similar kind of anger in response. I think there's trust issues that are coming up in terms of constituents questioning very early on, is this a done deal? Is it going to actually matter what we say? People were skeptical of Councilmember Velasquez's stance against Bruckner when she was saying time and time again that she was against it. And they kind of questioned whether she actually was against it. And then
Right.
at the end, she supported it.
So
So
now there would be, I think there would be a legitimate question mark as to whether that is going to happen here. Now, the article that we just showed, you wrote about we actually did a show on it on Bronx Talk as well. There was it wasn't quite violent, but there was a very vehement, vile in many cases, hearing at Jacoby Medical Center about this process. You were in the room? What was it like being in that room? Scary, I thought.
it can be overwhelming being in that environment. I'm just trying to take it all in, make sure I'm taking my notes, but also getting some photo
Fair
and
enough.
video. I wasn't surprised that it was chaotic because there was a Morris Park Community Association meeting over the summer. And similarly, it had a lot of people who were very upset about the project. There were representatives of the project there and elected officials there. So even though it wasn't, like official city business, it kind of had the appearance of a city public hearing. And people were very upset. They didn't want to hear from anyone who supported the project. They didn't want to hear people ask questions about the project. I covered that and took videos of that as well. And I think that kind of set the stage for the atmosphere of the community board hearing. I think it's a little different because the community board has certain rules in terms of how people are supposed to behave. I'm not aware of if the community association has rules, but the community board, they have certain rules that are supposed to be enforced.
It did not appear that at that meeting at Jacoby Medical Center that anything was enforced. I mean, people were threatening each other. There was one video I saw of somebody coming up to somebody and saying, "Where do you live? I want to bring you a present." I mean, and then use the F word after that. I mean, that kind of attitude. I mean, to be honest with you, for me, it smacked of the January 6th insurrection. That people just said, "We're going to be right. We're going to take over," and bully people into our point of view. That is not I've said it on the air on Bronx Talk. That is not what we need in the Bronx, and not what we need at a public hearing. I mean, it'd be hard to disagree with that.
The community board attempted to moderate. It wasn't very consistently enforced, which I think was part of the issue. So I think when people were told that they have to be quiet, maybe they weren't taking it as seriously. At the end of
Mm.
the day, it was very rowdy, and there were definitely people breaking the rules of etiquette. Um,
To
but
say the least,
no,
yeah.
but yeah, no one was kicked out of the meeting, and so that kind of validates the behavior. When one woman was speaking to people, paraded a "Don't Tread on Me" flag.
Yeah, I saw that. I couldn't believe that. I mean, that is not appropriate. Um, in at most hearings or meetings of this sort, you get a certain amount of time. I think usually it's 3 minutes to speak, and then at that point the microphones are turned off, and most people abide by those regulations because that's fair and that's the way. But in this case, as I understand, there was one guy making a point. He was not happy with the Fortune Society, and they let him go for 20 minutes. I saw the video. I was like, wait a minute, this is not an appropriate hearing. The borough president came out and said that she was going to take some interest in this. I wonder if there will be some action, or whether it be changing of community board members, or who knows. But we really can't have this tenor of dialogue in the Bronx. I mean, that's the way I see it. What do you know what the timing is on that, on approval for that? It has Is that a city council thing as well, that it'll have to go before the city council?
Yeah, that has to go to the city council. When I asked about the timeline for that, I was told it hasn't been set yet. The community board is voting on that this week, which is an advisory vote, just like with Bruckner. The community board voted against it, but at the end it still went through because it's advisory. The leadership committee voted to reject the Just Home proposal already with the community board. And so we'll find out later this week if the full board is going to go against that. And
We should mention, by the way, we didn't mention it's Community Board 11, and the
yes,
Bruckner proposal is Community Board 10, just so people would be informed about that. We're just about out of time. You working on anything of interest that we should know about?
well, the election's coming up.
Oh, the election's coming up. That's fair enough. All
Yes,
right.
reporters
Uh,
love those.
Mhm. And it will be interesting, especially in that part of the Bronx, because I think the opposing candidates have more followers than they do in other parts of the Bronx, given the nature of the Republican Democratic split geographically. Well, listen, Leah Schneider, we greatly value your work. We greatly value what you do for the Bronx Times. We really appreciate that you come on with us to discuss some of these issues. And we certainly will look forward to having you join us again in the future.
Thanks for having me.
Great. All right. We are going to take a short break. And when we come back, as I mentioned, we are going to be taking a look at interviewing the author of this particular book, and also taking a look at this book, South Bronx Rising, third edition, which brings you right up to date to the present time. And that's what we'll do when we come back.